What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NextDeal Podcast. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Josh Weisler. Said your last name correctly. Great to have you on today. We're joined, as always, with Vince Hall, our co-host here. Love it. Yeah, we'll have to make sure we cut to your face when you do that for that podcast.
For sure.
Excuse me. But super excited to have you on today, Josh. I know I've known you for a while now.
Yep.
Vince just met you today, but local St. Louis investor, been in the game for a long time, 17-ish years. Does that sound right?
Something like that. I lost count.
Yeah, 100+ deals.
St. Louis OG over here.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Just kind of start out. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, man.
Man, all right. The typical origin story. So for me,
every villain has one.
Every villain has one, right? So
it's all good.
Yep. So I started about 17, 18 years ago, somewhere in that range. How it all started was I saw a Carlton Sheets infomercial about 2:00 in the morning, and it was how he presented it was inspiring and was something that, he sold the dream of get out of what you're doing. You're hating your life. You can do real estate and you can do it with none of your own money and all of these other things. And so that's where I started. That's not how it happened immediately, but that's where it all started. Right. So I took that and went out, started going to local and, RIA clubs, the real estate investment association clubs, worked that crowd, was out networking, as so I thought back then. And I didn't really do anything with real estate for probably, 5 years. I was in that information gathering mode, and it wasn't,
we might have.
It's not that it was bad. It just was, it took time, and I didn't have the skill sets or the knowledge. I was kind of inspiration on fire, but wasn't getting anything done. So I went to all these events. I got connected with supposedly at the time, and this is going to be the kind of the dark side of these paths that nobody really talks about, got connected with a guy I thought was a mentor, and thought he was going to provide the missing piece of me getting deals and doing all these things. Well, I ended up working for him for free for about 3 years. And
wow.
Yeah, with the promise of, you're going to make a ton of money. We're building out this giant business. We're doing all these things. And at the end of the day, ended up probably siphoned off 6 figures from a couple different people in the group. And it just left a bad taste in my mouth. At the end of it, I was going through a divorce. I had just had my daughter, who's now, she just turned 15, getting ready to drive. And so it was a dark time, and got through that, took a hiatus because my divorce attorney said, hey, man, you're not making any money. You're not having any success in real estate, and you're going through a divorce with a child. You need to go get a job. And so I went out and I had a relationship with a title company, ended up working with that title company for about 3 years, but didn't do any deals, didn't do anything really in real estate besides learning title. And at the end of that, ended up going, and that company came back from 4th of July weekend and came in and they go, hey, we got our insurance, we got our underwriting pulled for fraud. And so you need to go file for unemployment. And so, went from, and Justin, you probably don't even know that, went from a con man to, 3 years at this title company, and then coming in and hey, your world's upside down again. I took a little hiatus from real estate. So I went and
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Before I got into real estate, I was selling cell phones, and I had run 10 stores, and I had a pretty good, I was managing 30 to 40 employees at any given time. And so, it was a dark place. So I took a hiatus, went back to selling cell phones for about, I'd say 3 or 4 years, became a manager, was launching stores and stuff. But the thing in the back of my head was always, how do I get back into real estate? How do I get, it's always that nagging thing in the back of your head where if you don't figure out how to satisfy that nagging thought, that conscious thought in the back, it becomes a regret eventually, right? So I was working Left the cell phone company, ended up selling airplane parts in Granite City, Illinois, which is a small town on the east side of
Yeah.
St. Louis in Illinois. Was selling small airplane parts for them. And my wife, my current wife, we were looking for a new house. We were living in a duplex in Granite City. She had just gotten a job in South St. Louis, so we were like, well, maybe, let's look at buying a house over there. What is this going to take? We started saving money, and I went through a couple different personal development trainings at the time, and one of the things they talked about was put things into your path in your life that cause you to show up differently while you're on the journey to get them. And so one of the things from that training, it hit me, was going back to my job selling airplane parts and saying, hey, I don't know how this is going to look, but I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to give a 4 months notice because I want you guys to be backfilled. I want you to fill my spot. I was the lead sales guy at that time. And I said, it's not for me anymore. I want to get back into real estate. I don't know how it's going to look. And I put that 4 month notice in. 3 months into that 4 month notice, no prospects, nothing with real estate, but we were in the process of buying our new house. We were looking for mortgage brokers, and I used a referral that I got from a guy the decade before when I was in real estate and going through stuff. And he's like, yeah, I can help you out. I was looking at a couple different mortgage companies. And the guy that referred me, he gets a stipend. He gets from the business this guy does as a business owner. He set it up to where he's not working in that business, but he's getting something. Well, the guy that I had initially talked to reached out to the guy that originally referred me and said, hey, this guy is thinking about working with us, but not. So his name was Jason. He messaged me directly and said, hey, man, you're going to work with us on this mortgage lending side. We're going to get you a house. You know me. You know how this works. Very forward, very confident in himself. And I liked it at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, my gut was telling me, with everything else I put into the situation, I said, hey, I don't know what's happening on your end of the spectrum, but something in my gut's telling me, we're supposed to work together in some form or fashion, because otherwise, why the hell would you be reaching out to me, right? And I said that to him, and he goes, hey, talk to my acquisition manager, and let's see what you can do. And so I had a job where I was getting paid. I was selling airplane parts. And when I talked with the acquisition manager, they were like, yeah, I don't believe you really want this. I don't believe, we don't really have an opportunity here. We don't really have a fit. And so I was persistent, and I kept following up with her to get time. And after 2 weeks, she finally gave me an interview. I had conversations with her and eventually got on. But the stipulation was it was all split based. So I only got paid on the deals that I did. And because they were a trainer and he was a national trainer at the time, he said, you're going to pay me, you're going to put a down payment, show me that you have skin in the game. You're going to pay me $1,000. You'll get back on your third deal that you do with us. At the time, I didn't have $1,000 on top of saving money for this house and all this other stuff. So, yeah. So what is that? 6 years ago, probably 2017, I think 2016, 2017, I quit my job, or no, sorry. We closed on the house June 23rd. I quit my job August 15th. I paid them $1,000 to get into this group and start learning how to wholesaling and then other things. And we ended up having $2,000 in our bank account when we moved into this house, and I quit my job. And so,
yeah,
definitely don't recommend that for most people. No,
I did something pretty similar. What year did you quit? 2017 or 2016?
Yeah, it was 2016 or 2017. I think it was 2017.
I'll say mine. That's funny. I quit my W-2 job August 20th, 2017.
Yeah. Oh wow. So yeah, we're 5 days apart.
Same week. Yeah. I was similar. I was stuck in I did car warranty stuff for a long time, and
nice.
From the time I was 18 to 20, 26, 27, I don't know, somewhere around there. I had worked at 8 different ones, and I either got fired from all of them or they all went out of business. One of the two, except for the last one. Yeah, last one's still around, but man, it's I did the exact same thing where it's I left with $1,000 or $2,000 maybe, and a promise of I have enough money to not die. I have enough to pay my bills monthly, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Justin,
Well,
did you
and
work? Did you work for those brothers in like Lake St. Louis that did car warranties?
That was
You know who I'm talking about?
Darren and Corey Atkinson. Yes, I do, and I did work for them, unfortunately.
you
uh,
know, you know it.
yes,
When your
yes.
name enters a room before you, it's either a really good thing or a really bad thing normally.
Hmm. Yes, and it was it honestly, dude, I loved working there. Like it was called US Fidelis. Like couldn't tell that there was anything going on. Like nothing behind the scenes, like nothing that we saw. Like I worked in sales and customer service. Met my first business coach there who was not a business coach until I was uh until my final year in the car warranty industry. He got actually hired. It was one of my managers to teach the leadership. So I was a manager at that point, and he got hired to help coach managers and be better leaders. And he was like, his name's Chris Robinson. He now works for John
Yeah,
Maxwell as his like president of or vice president of coaching worldwide.
that's
And
awesome.
like it's been super cool to see. But it was like when he got started, he told the owners and he told everyone like that was going through this teaching with him. We went through the 21 Laws of Leadership was the book that we started with. And he was like, look, 90% of these people are going to be way better managers, way better leaders. 10% are going to quit and realize that this is not for them anymore, that there's something bigger, there's something better, there's more stuff out there, and they're not going to want to be a
Did I
part of
freeze?
this. And I was literally the only person out of like 20 people that ended up leaving from that. But yeah, like long story short, like, yes, I did work at US Fidelis. I did work for those brothers. I did get laid off in mass layoffs and then watched it crumble from the outside. Yeah. And then they went to jail for, embezzling millions of dollars.
Yeah, long time.
Oh man,
Yep.
and that's when that's just tough. Like that's a tough way to live, for sure. Did I
Yeah.
freeze? No, I thought I froze.
I mean, if you free, we could still hear you and we'll cut this part out.
Yeah,
We can still hear you. It still records. So as long as we
gotcha.
can hear each other, we're good because it's still recording
Cool.
your feed and our feed separately.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So, like I said, that's a tough life, and at that point, like one of the things for me shifting out of that job and into real estate, and for most people, the with this next deal, um, I love the name of your podcast, by the way. Like that for
Thank
me,
you.
and I end up in my transition as I keep going through this history. Like I'm in the coaching world now, but for me, one of the things that I see for the biggest growth people will have is breaking the seal is the hardest thing. Getting your first deal is the hardest thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
having the support system in place for me by joining these people, like I've had to put skin in the game. I had to put money on the line that I was going to hopefully get back. So I was not betting, and this is where a lot of people sometimes they falter, is they think I'm paying a coach or I'm paying somebody or I'm paying out for a product. You're not actually paying for the product. What I was doing was I was betting, I was investing. This is what investing for me has really become, is I was betting on myself to be able to become the person that was going to not just be able to do this, but get my money back. Right. And so
Yeah.
I went into it, and it was tough. The first 4 months, the first 3 or 4 months, like I lived on credit cards because I was not doing deals. I was learning cold calling. I was driving for dollars every day. I was, man, I remember it. I remember it like it was yesterday now talking about this, driving around in my car, which I still have. Um, Driving around in my car like 7 hours a day all over South County, driving for dollars, finding deals, and then going and cold calling and like putting that work in, and
And
like
this is before
knowing,
like the driving for dollars apps, right?
oh yeah, like we were
Writing it
tracking
on a
you.
notepad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's other apps that we were like, one of the things we got kind of good at was like retrofitting stuff. So we were using like a hiking app that had come out. The driving for dollars apps weren't out yet. So like we were using All Trails as
Okay.
the app. Yeah. Because it'll
Yeah.
track your trail so you know where you drove, and then you just don't drive there again. And then you got like 70
That's
maps
hilarious.
compiled. Yeah. So, and again, that's one of the greatest things I learned in the process with this original. So I'm with this original, I would say the original mentor. I did a bunch of stuff that wasn't functional, got hooked up with a con man. He wasn't a mentor. This was kind of my first mentor. So I would say, and everything that he did was very business oriented and amazing. Amazing looking back on it. Like, how we had the business set up is we would do deals. It was 90%, well, it was actually more than that. It was all wholesaling at the time. And if we had to use his money, and I don't know how advanced most of your guys' customer base is, or your listener base is, but if you do what's called a double closing, some title companies will allow you to use the second closing's proceeds to fund the first closing, where you actually have to buy the house and then turn around and sell it, right? As a wholesale, we call it double
Right.
closing. If we had to bring his money to the table, we got less of the deal. And so we got really good at learning how to tell people and be creative without using his money. Like, and for me, that was one of the greatest lessons, was like, hey, there's a potential roadblock here. How do we get creative so that we can either circumvent it, we can go around it? And really, it's become one of the things that I value in our business, is that aspect of adversity. Like, adversity isn't, I used to look at it in the beginning of this, I used to look at it, adversity, as an obstacle, or the world causing something that I was at the mercy of. And now what I'm seeing is this adversity is any adversity that it is really comes up to being something that we've asked for, something that we put this, I put this vision into the world, and I don't know how to get there. Well, the world will deliver the specific things to help you grow through it if you choose to. And that's where you run into that adversity. You either choose to grow, or you commit to not growing and you stay where you're at, right? We only grow through differences, through changing what we're doing, and we only change what we're doing sometimes when it gets painful. So adversity is a changing mechanism. And so
And it
I worked
it
with
can
this
suck at first.
right, right.
But
Yeah.
but
And
it's very beneficial, and that's
it's
good.
amazingly beneficial. And that's where the thing, there's all kinds of different approaches to it, but we're all pretty much saying the same thing. Like, I know, Justin, you and I, we've got, we met through our coach, Michael Kidko, an amazing dude. And it's like, hey, we're going to evolve through like loving ourselves and mindset stuff and all of this. And then how do we go through that adversity in a more powerful way? And then you've got people like David Goggins and some other people that are like, adversity is my, for lack of a better term, like, it's my, I was going to say my bitch. You can edit that if you need to, but like,
You can say it. You're good.
Yeah,
We're not in trouble.
adversity. Yeah. Adversity is my bitch. I like, embrace the suck is what he says. And it's muscling through it. And everybody, like, you'll grow that way too. That's really all we're doing, is we're all trying to get to where we want to go. And sometimes it's going to feel difficult. It doesn't mean it's hard. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But in regards to this,
Well,
so
and it's
that adversity, I originally thought was like, oh, he was doing this to us by not giving us more of the deal and this and this. And now looking back on it, I was like, no, he's a businessman. I get what he was doing. I understand what he was doing. Like, he's taking a risk by putting his money on the line. Things can go sideways. Like, and so now, as I learned the creativity piece, and now as I'm looking back, I'm realizing the business aspect of it. It helped me in that level, and now I've got another level that I'm going through. And so with that, worked with them for 3 or 4 years. We were training as well as doing our own deals. So I did dozens of deals with them. We were training other investors at the time. We were doing a 2-day weekend event, and we were helping all of these people. We were training dozens at a time over the 3 years. And I really got the feeling of like helping these people, because we were doing the back end stuff. Like, he was the upfront, he was the face of the company. It was his business, and he was out there promoting, and he was the sales, like, he was the guy. And then we were on the back end helping facilitate. We were helping when they had like customer service stuff, all of this stuff. And so I really got a taste for that. And then 3 or 4 years in, we had kind of a separation. I wanted to learn more of like project management, getting into flipping, doing some rentals, and they were still doing wholesaling and the coaching, and we amicably split at that point. I started working with another company, did project management for them for like 10 months, did rehabs, ran their projects, as well as when I came in, they had an acquisition department. They had an acquisition guy who wasn't working. And when I came on, they were like, hey, do you think we should keep him? Like, they brought me in, and I basically was not only their project manager, but I was kind of their acquisition manager too, just from my history of coaching and working with this previous company. And so we ended up firing their acquisition guy. We ended up hiring 2 more people. I ended up training them. And like all of this in the span of 6, 7 months, 8 months. And then while I was out on a project, there was a beef between the management of the company and the salespeople. They fired both of them and then brought me back in, and they're like, hey, we're pivoting. We're going to go and do virtual wholesaling, and we're not really going to do projects anymore. And they had brought me back in, and they were having me do cold calls on deals that we had already killed to try and drum up extra business. And I was like, I get what we're doing here, but if we're just pivoting the business and you guys don't have a plan on having me get back out into the field to do project management, work on projects and that stuff, like, let's have that conversation and we can move forward as friends. And they're like, yeah, we just didn't know how to tell you, but we're going to let you go. We're trimming, and we're just going to go this route. And it was like, okay, cool. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have ever done this where you think a conversation is going to go one way and then you come back and it goes a different way. I was expecting them to go, yeah,
It
let's
goes
go
the
out.
exact opposite.
Right. Yeah. I was expecting them to go like, hey, let's go do some projects and do this. And they were like, no, basically you're fired. And so I got to go home and tell my wife, said, hey, you know, I thought it was going to go this way, and I ended up getting let go. So I don't have anything. So I sat and played the pity party for probably 2 or 3 days and was like, what do I want to do? I knew I loved coaching people, and I knew I loved real estate. And I really sat there of like, what do I need to do? And so one of the things I thought of was, I'm going to start a consulting company. And I started in real estate. I started working with a couple investors. I got a handful of clients in the first couple months and was working with them, but I wanted more like direction. I wanted more business like development. I wanted some things like I wanted to grow this, right? And so I connected with my current partner in the coaching company, Grant Hickman, out of St. Charles. And I came to him. Yeah, he was getting ready to launch a coaching company, and actually had a agent that he was going to do this with, pull out of the company and start another brokerage with like a lot of his agents. And so he was going through a transition period as well. And we started talking about what it would look like, just to work together. And I ended up coming on board as a investor, to like work together, do some wholesales and split deals. After that started working, we found I had a really good knack for mentoring other investors that were newer with their lead conversion. They might be out there generating leads, but they don't necessarily know how to do a wholesale. They don't know how to do these things. So I would walk them through and we'd split deals. We did that for about a year and a half. And we decided to start going for the investment brokerage, because he's a traditional broker, been there doing it for 20 years. We took both of those aspects and said, hey, let's start an investment brokerage and see what that looks like, running the traditional brokerage model. For us, in our experience, that lasted probably about less than a year, because what we found is traditional retail agents are really good when they have infrastructure in place and systems in place that they're provided, and they just kind of get to go out and be, customer service, build relationships, do all this stuff. Investors are a different animal most of the time, where they want to run their own systems. They don't want to be like compacted into this process that like it's a lot like herding cats. If you're dealing with people that are going to be out there doing stuff, right? I don't know if you guys have ever experienced
I feel like
that.
doing that with any business owner is like herding cats.
Anybody with an entrepreneurial spirit, they want a flavor of running their own stuff. And so what we found, the traditional brokerage model did not work with an investment brokerage, unless we were going to like provide all the leads, provide all the like a payment as well stipend. And we weren't looking to do that. What we found is we really enjoyed the coaching process, and we really enjoyed that personal development component and business development. And so we pivoted last November, to a membership model. And so now we've been building that out. I still do investing with my partner. One of our initial investors that we brought in was Laura Lennington. I don't know if you guys know her, but she's been an investor.
I know Laura.
She's done wholesaling for a while. She's got some rental properties. One of the aspects is we actually bought an 11 unit last year through this process. I was working to actually wholesale it, and the deal, and we can talk about this in a second. So we've got an 11 unit, and now I'm running this coaching company with Grant, and Laura and I, on that real estate side, we've got our 11 unit. We are looking to start doing apartment syndications. And so we're in the process of building that out, recruiting investors, private money, as well as looking for that next deal. We've got an 11 unit. We're looking in that 20 range, right? So with that, like, I'm using coaching, and this is what we recommend for a lot of people in real estate, is have something that's an active income, either wholesaling, flipping, whatever that ends up being, and then funnel that into your passive. And they say passive, but really it's not passive. You're managing on some level, funneling it into your wealth creation, which is your properties, right? And so that's what I do. My active is the coaching, and then I funnel it into the wealth of the real estate. And so now I say that, and our 11 unit was bought with less than $1,000 of our own money. We use private money, and we use creative financing. Like I said back in the day, I really enjoy it. Like, that adversity of learning how to do stuff creatively really kind of set in with me as how I love doing deals just to begin with. If I can do a deal without any of my own money, why wouldn't I, right? I don't know if you guys have that mentality, but so
yes, absolutely.
To give you a breakdown of this 11 unit and what we've experienced here, it's been a life of learning lessons in the past year. So I got this connection.
Did you just pick that up in the last year?
Yeah, we picked it up last July. So a year and a half, right? So we picked it up, and the story, how that was, I got introduced to a homicide detective from St. Louis. He had this 11 unit, and he was looking for connections. He was either looking to fix up his building. He was looking to do a couple things, and it didn't. I gave him some connections. He came back to me a couple months later, and he's like, "Hey, I think we're gonna sell this building. Will you help me sell it?" He didn't want to do it on market because they tried that before, and so it was wholesaling an 11 unit apartment. For me, I had never done it before on that size. I'd done bigger buildings, quads, all that stuff, but 11 unit was a new adventure. And I knew he was kind of asking a little bit more than normal. Sometimes wholesalers, you find the spread on what you can buy it for versus what you can sell it for. I negotiated up front because I knew he was kind of asking a lot. I'm like, hey, like, if we're going to do this and you're going to get what you want, or you're going to work to sell this, I'm going to want 15 as a wholesaling fee. I just out the gate. And I also learned over time, being very transparent with the sellers. You can present wholesaling, you can present anything in real estate. If you can connect the dots on how they value it and it makes sense to them, you can pretty much influence and have people do a lot of things that you're looking to get done. You're just looking for partners in the deal, right? A seller is a partner in the deal. A buyer is a partner in the deal. Everybody becomes partners in the deal. That way, when that adversity or a curveball comes up, everybody can work together because everybody knows the game and everybody has the same outcome in mind, which is selling or buying that property. Versus if you're not honest with the seller, then you're trying to navigate stories. You're trying to do it's a lot of extra energy. So this is a great example. I set out the gate a $15,000 fee. He was listing it at $450, or he wanted to sell it at $450, and we had a couple people come through, and he ended up taking an offer at $380 on it. They did a walkthrough, and it had roaches, and a lot of roaches actually, and they walked at $380. And I'm like, dude, $380. And the seller was still like trying to sweeten the pot, saying, hey, if he needs me to hold a note back, if he needs me to do seller financing, like whatever, let me know. We want this deal done. So he offered 380.
So he's
I-
motivated.
Yeah.
Super
I'm not
motivated,
gonna
right?
lie. When you first started,
Go ahead,
Say that
Vince.
again.
I was gonna say, I'm not gonna lie. When you first started the story, when you're like you met a homicide detective, I was thinking the 11 unit was gonna have like bodies in it. So roaches sound pretty good compared to bodies.
That's very true. Well, and I don't know the full story of all of this, but yeah, I don't know what happened beforehand. No, that's a good
Don't know how he
point.
found the property.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. He may have. Well, and there are twists and turns in this story. So we ended up, I came back to him. I'm like, man, they walked at 380. Like, and from that 380, you were going to take a note and you were going to pay me 15 grand. I was like, Barry, why don't we buy it at 370 and you let us take over the note? You let us buy this subject to take over what you owe, and and then we'll give you the difference in your payment. So we ended up giving him a down payment. Like we bought it at 370. I think after some inspections and stuff, we found some stuff. It ended up being like 367. And then he owed, I think 325 was the note. And that was great. So we ended up having to pay him 45. We took over the note. We had asked somebody, and this is where for me, if I can recommend anything for people out there, even people in high caliber, like high elevated, like coaches, mentors, guides, it saves so much time and gives you results you won't even think of. So one of the things we did with this property, we took it to a guy that we know, Justin, you know him as well. But we took him to a guy who has a lot of properties here. They do a lot of stuff, and they've got multifamilies. They've got bigger buildings. And we took the deal to him and said, hey, will you just help us evaluate this to make sure we're on the right track? And he said, yeah, sure. And so we've had a good relationship with him. And so he did that as a favor to us. And we looked at the deal, and he's like, looks like a really good deal for you guys. And we're like, yeah, we think we need 65 grand in private money to do this. And, to pay this guy off, as well as give us some additional funding, because the 11 unit also came with a vacant building that we told the seller we were going to sell as soon as we took over, to pay into this. Figured we get 5 to 10 grand to help with our fund. And so the guy that we were speaking with, our mentor, he goes, yeah, this actually looks like a really good deal. I might be interested in loaning on it. And I was like, oh, we weren't expecting that. And he goes, and full honesty, like you're asking 65. He's like, you probably have enough space in there to do 75 and be okay. And we're like, would you do 75? He goes, yeah, these are my terms. Now, this is where you evaluate, because his terms was like 7 or 8 points on the front and then seven or 8 on the back. It came out to 15 when it was all said and done, right?
Okay.
15% on your money, which for private money, for hard money, is about average. That's institutional. When you do private money, you have a better relationship. Most of these people, however, he's a very savvy investor. He knows his money is worth 15. Here's a negotiation tactic, technique, whatever you want to say. Don't give something without getting it back. We were like, hey, we can get this money. We've already got people that were willing to do it at like 8 and 10%, but we wanted his knowledge as well. And we're like, hey, if we do your money, we'll do it at the 15%, but we want to meet with you once a month to make sure that this is on track and what we're doing, basically a check-in to make sure that our process and our strategies are right. And he goes, yeah, I probably would have done that for you anyway, but yeah, let's do it. So we got the money, we got this deal, we got into the deal. Now, we also did, since it's subject to, we had trust in all this. We had another one of our relationships that we had. He helped us with all the paperwork and made this happen. We got into the deal. This deal was not anything close to what it was represented at, and not through any deception from the seller. They had a property management company. It was from lack of communication and lack of the seller understanding really what was going on at their property. We
Meaning
got
like
in.
condition and tenants and things like that wasn't what you guys were expecting?
No, the tenants we kind of knew. It was more like who was. This is an example. We got in, the tenant that we had the strongest rental history and had the longest time there, and it was reported to like love the building. We got in first week, 3 days in, they come to us. The mom of this tenant comes to us and goes, "Hey, just to let you know, we're moving out, and we'll expect our deposit, because we're going to sweep this clean and we're going to be out in less than 4 days." It was like, "Oh, excuse me." And they go, yeah, it was like, we gave them 60 days notice. So here's the emails, here's this. And it was like, oh, okay, great. So right off the bat, we're losing. Yeah, right off the bat, we're giving a deposit back because they kept it clean enough. Roaches everywhere from the building. I mean, there was a couple roaches in their unit, but so yeah, right out the bat, we had to do that. So we get into this, and we're selling this side building. The side building was a vacant. It had a burnout in it. They said there was nothing encumbered in the mortgage. The mortgage notes, everything was collateralized to the 11 unit on paper. When we went to the bank and we got into the selling of it, we got an offer. We're going to sell it for 10 grand. 3 days out from closing, title company comes back and goes, hey, there's $40,000 leveraged on this. There's a $40,000 lien from the bank on this. We went back to the seller. Yeah, we went back to the seller. Well, here's how this stuff works out. This adversity, like we had literally 2 weeks beforehand we want a $40,000 like just deliverance of money, like put it out of the universe. I don't know how it's going to happen, but let's see what happens. We went to the seller, had a conversation with him and said, hey, we told you we were going to sell this. We told you, like, we wanted to make sure there was nothing on it. You said there was nothing on it. You said you checked with the bank. All this paperwork says nothing on it. And now the bank's coming back and telling us this. And he said, oh, I think when we talked to them, when the fire happened, they wanted to make sure that they collateralized it. So they probably put collateral, they put a lien on it in their back end system, but they never reflected it on paperwork. And like the seller apparently said he signed something with the insurance and all that. So the seller goes, we have to, we're not going to stop you from selling that. We're going to work it out with the bank. And I'm like, okay, hey, Barry, I know what work it out with the bank means on my end in order to close this. Like, does that mean they're going to recollateralize it on the 11 unit? Does that mean they're going to collateralize something else? Like, what does that mean for you? Because I know what it means for me when you say take care of it. For me, it means pay it off.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to pay off that $40,000 so that you can close tomorrow. So we got a $40,000 payment directly to our equity, our principal of our loan, and got 10 grand from this additional building. Nice. So this was a windfall, right? This building has taught me a lot of and just in real estate or just business in general or just life in general, don't react when things happen. Because when we react, if we react negatively and we get frustrated and angry, it's going to stop us from being able to navigate and make things workable. So we just went through the process with this. We were going to do whatever. And it ended up being a $40,000 windfall for us instead of we're going to have to hold this building and figure out something else, rehab it or sell it or do this. And so that was a win. This person that moved out initially, we took that as well. Like we just went through the process. A month after this house, after we sold it, we had there were two hot spots, they called it, in the building where the roaches were propagating. One was with a heroin addict. He was in one unit, and we had another guy that was a schizophrenic.
Okay.
And yeah, in the same week, so we asked these guys, we asked the one guy to leave because they weren't paying. Neither one was paying. And this was at the time where they were doing eviction holds and all this stuff. There was county stuff that had like these programs that paid rent and everything. And so we had gone through to try and get the heroin addict, some relief. Actually, we asked him to leave. The schizophrenic guy, we had some relief because they weren't evicting anybody really. The heroin addict, his mom was working with him to get him out and get him help. And the schizophrenic guy, he was digging in and he was not leaving. He was going through this process to get his rent back and all this stuff. And so we worked with the schizophrenic guy to get his rent because he was like $3,500 behind from, again, okay. when we took it over, the documents had said like, I think $1,000 or he was going to be caught up or evicted before we took it over. And that didn't end up happening. And he ended up being $3,500 behind when it was all said and done, when we were there having the conversation with him. So the heroin addict moved out. The schizophrenic, we ended up connecting with him and getting him because the day before his eviction, he ended up saying, I'm going to go through this and get all this rent back. I'm applying for aid. And you can't really evict them when they're applying for aid. It's a kind of a no-no at the time.
Okay.
So we worked with him. We got him approved for $3,500 and got it paid. How this played out, we met with him on Monday, the schizophrenic. We met with him on Monday, got his paperwork filed, everything done. Tuesday, and this is a week, so this is all of this. The schizophrenic, we got his paperwork done on Monday. Tuesday, we got notification, the heroin addict that moved out, we've been in contact because they owed us money as well. The heroin addict that moved out, because he blew all of his veins out, like he had ended up being in the hospital. He ended up passing like a couple, like shortly after moving out. That was Tuesday. Wednesday, we roach treated the building because he had moved. The heroin addict had moved out. The schizophrenic guy had no furniture in his place. It was just a mattress, but we had sprayed, and that unit specifically, the schizophrenic unit, his unit, we bug bombed. Literally, roaches started coming out because it flushes them out and then kills them. So literally coming out from behind like cabinets, coming out of the outlets, crawling up because they go high, crawling up to the ceiling, and then literally raining in the unit, like watching roaches rain in the unit.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so that was Wednesday. Friday, the schizophrenic guy, his dad came into town from Florida, was looking for him. He took off. He ended up walking in front of a bus on Friday, or not a bus, a truck, and he died.
Jeez.
So that was the week we had. And I talked to my partner Laura on it, and I said, "Hey, this has been a hell of a week."
Yeah, no shit.
The next deal, right? And I said, "This has been a lot of chaos and adversity. And do we want to continue to work on doing this again?" And the answer was yes. And so we both decided we were going to go through it. And then, this year I think we ended up turning 8 or 9 of the units. We refinanced it in February, which was 8 months. Our plan was to refinance it in 2 years. We ended up with that $40,000 payment, able to refinance it way earlier. And because of that, we had to get other things in line in order to do that, which was great. So we refinanced that. We have a lot of equity sitting in it because we did it less than a year. You're not allowed to pull money out, but we've got a great deal. It's cash flowing. It's got a lot of equity in it. We've turned 8 of the 11 units. We sold that extra building, and we are currently in the process of getting it ready. We are looking at potential, and here's what we're doing. We're elevating this property. We're either going to sell it because we've got a lot of equity in it and want to make a chess move as we're doing this new syndications, or we're just going to operate it like it is a more elevated property and have that approach and that energy with it, to whether someone else is going to buy it or we're going to continue to own it. We want it to be performing better. And so that's how the process we're started looking at. Yeah. And so now we're looking at doing those additional syndications. So the other pieces that come back, that person that left initially, because the other 2 people that ended up passing in that week, she ended up coming back 3 months later as she moved back into town. She said those were the issues in the building is why she moved out. So she moved back in. We've had other things happen with the building, but it's been amazing. And then, I've got all these other things, all these other deals. But that's the one that's been probably the most growth situated for me in the past year. So
yeah, sounds like
it.
Are you doing most of your deals in the St. Louis market?
Yeah. Yes. All of my deals have been in the St. Louis market. I have not gone out of local area as of yet. We're talking with the syndication, doing our first couple in St. Louis, and then we are most likely going to be spreading out and doing it in other markets.
Yeah.
That for me it's very heavily dependent on the partnerships that we build in order to do that.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. With, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've had my, my encounters with, a drug addict at a property in Illinois that wasn't paying rent. So I went there and the front door was cracked open. And so I just kind of peeked in, and he's passed out on the couch. There's cocaine on the coffee table and a 1-year-old baby just walking around in the living room that at any moment could just be eating the cocaine.
Yeah.
Luckily wasn't.
Jeez.
So yeah, that guy, sheriff came pretty quickly to, evict him. And then I went over to his house like I don't know, it could have been a week, 2 weeks later, something like that. Chased me around the yard with a bat, like
Oh, geez.
Man.
saying he
Well,
was gonna kill me and stuff. So yeah, it was quite the encounter.
Jeez.
Well, and that's the thing with real estate is I think real estate especially for people that are buying distressed properties, anybody with a situation, you're going to be running into the best of humanity and the worst of and
Yeah.
that's a judgment as well. But
Yeah.
you see people, I think what was it? Ted Lasso, I think has a quote around that. It's like, I hope that when we're judged at the end of the day, we're either all judged on our worst moments or none of us are. And
Yeah.
it's really like that. It's
Yeah.
Laura, my partner in our building, has really helped me with this. Looking at our tenants as we're all people. Like
Yeah.
they deserve the same respect as anybody else. Like they deserve to be treated with humanity. They deserve to be treated with love. Cleaning out this guy, the schizophrenic kid, he's 23. Cleaning it out after 2 days after hearing that he had passed, clearing out his unit, with the permission of the parents, like it was a realization. It was like, back in the day, you have all these concepts about how things need to work, and I'm sitting here cleaning out his unit with his, like, all of his belongings in his life got put into like five trash cans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, damn, like this is, and I put in that form I put out, like, business for me is a personal development journey. It's a personal development tool. And looking at this, like, that was development for me of like getting compassion more and like understanding, like appreciating life. And some people find it that way. Some people value the money. Some people value the status, the impact. Like that, for me, this journey is all about finding out really how you want to show up in the world and who you want to be and what stories you want to make now. And I've got hundreds of stories. Like the company I worked with before, I didn't witness it, but through two of our people saw it. They had somebody that went to the bathroom in front of them in a living room because they couldn't hold it themselves. Like I've had, you find dead cats that have been mummified in these houses. Like we see all of these things, and some people, it's all a matter of how you interact with it, how you show up, what you want to provide. Some people don't do that. They look at just nice houses. It's all rent ready. It's turnkey. Like, what do you want to make in this business? What do you want to make in the world? It's all there to craft for you. It's just a matter of how do we go out and do it a lot of times. And just knowing that you'll figure it out is one of the big things. Anyway, I feel like I turned into a tangent. So
I mean,
no,
hey,
it's so true. Like the things that, the things that we see. Like I remember visiting at a property. I don't know, it was like in the St. Anne area, and like as soon as you walked in, I was just like, what is happening? There was flies everywhere. There was a dedicated poop room. So the person was not pooping in the bathroom. They were pooping in her room, just on the floor.
Yep.
And she never wore the same clothes twice, which was interesting. So she said the clothes were dirty.
Buying new clothes?
Yeah. So the clothes were dirty after she wore them once. But if you saw the house, you were like, that doesn't make any sense. So she was throwing all
like
of her
those clothes are the cleanest things in this house.
Right. So she was throwing all of her clothes into the garage. And I am not lying. There was a pile of clothes from wall to wall, at least 5 feet deep.
Wow.
And you opened, and the garage leaked. So there's water every time it rained, would just get under the garage door. So it was just musty, moldy. I was just like, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing, like seeing how people live.
But it was sad
you're talking hoarder situations with that.
Like,
yeah. And that's, there's a psychological,
there is a huge, like psychological, just something going on, mentally, where her house is in shambles, but she's telling me I don't wear the same clothes twice because they're dirty.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I couldn't connect the dots, but it's just so interesting because her house on the street, you could just tell everybody was like, we want her gone. We want this house to sell. We want somebody to come in. We want an investor to take it. We want them to fix it. Overgrown everywhere. The city always has to come in and mow the lawn. It was just a tough situation overall, but I was just like, that's a big pass for me. It was something I couldn't do myself.
Yeah. And that's, so one of the things and that's what we recommend, or that's what I recommend. And then I also recommend people looking at their business. If you've done any type of volume with real estate and you're trying to narrow, a lot of people are like, when we coach people, it's like, hey, if I had to tell you, or if you had to tell me what you were going to do between going from like, say, one deal a month to say 2 or 3, what would you do? And it's always the tactical. I'd go out and I'd do more mailers. I'd do more calls. I'd bandit signs, whatever the tactic is. Right. And we have a conversation with him of like, tell me about your deals. Can you go through and tell me, like, what was the motivation of the sellers that you had? Was it a specific list? Where did they generate from? Conversion pieces end up being more important with volume than the volume initially, because it's more, for us, it's more important what you put into the funnel than just filling the funnel, right? It's as important, if not more. You can increase your amount per deal. You can increase, and normally what happens is, how we operate in life, we start attracting different people. And so what will happen is you'll go through these things and you'll find a common component. And if you can find that common component being the distress that a seller has, you become an expert in that distress. You become an authority and people gravitate to you making this money. One of the things that I loved when I was doing like single family deals, I like working with business owners now and more savvy investors, because there's more workability and there's not as much emotion. There's still an emotional component, but I was loving working with people that inherited houses and now they're behind on taxes, because that takes you through a full ride of something that brings in a factor that normally isn't there with some other distresses. Like with its divorce, it's normally, I hate the other spouse. When it's, bankruptcy, it's, I hate myself. When it becomes goes from the inheritance to the behind on taxes, it goes from the house being a blessing to the house being a anchor. And if it's around the house, then they're more likely and more willing to work with the house. And I also loved helping those people that got connected. Like there's a connection component with their parents that they have to move through. And I'm really good at helping people understand where they're blocked and helping them move from those blocks. And so, especially when it's an emotional component. So that's where I ended up finding a lot of my deals, and normally my bigger deals. And of course, where they're creative, because you've got, trust involved and other stuff. But it almost never fails. If anybody's done volume and you go back and you're like, which deals have been your most exciting? Which deals have you been your most fulfilling? Which deals have been your most profitable? Which deals are you doing the most? And they can actually verbalize or actually have that data. Lean into that is what we normally tell people. Like, figure out a way to create a system around that instead of just going and putting more stuff out there. So
I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago that I haven't heard before, but I really like it. Because it makes a lot of sense, is that business is a personal development tool. Like
my jam.
That's not, yeah. And it's funny. I've never heard someone put it that way before, but it's 100% correct. Whether if you want it to be or not, you will grow, you will change, you will have to be who you are not currently to get to where you want to be. Right. Like, I think it's the old saying, like, what you've done that's got you here won't get you to where you want to be. And you have to become the person that can handle that. So what's been some of your experience with the personal development that you've seen while growing businesses? I know we talked a little bit about the stuff you did through like the 11 unit there, but just overall as a whole, like, what's the underlying theme for you with that?
Yeah. So a lot of it, man, where do I even begin on this? So for me, it's really, for me, what I nowadays, it's easy to kind of pick out and see. When I started, it was not even close, but looking back, and this is what happens with a lot of people. we'll say things like, my business isn't successful because I'm not consistent. My business isn't successful because of this. And like we show up in our businesses, we show up in our lives, we show up just in life in general through the stories that we're telling ourselves all the time. And all of our stories are necessarily an illusion. So I'm hoping I'm going to answer your question effectively and get to it. And if I don't, please bring me
Sure.
back to circle. Because this is a huge topic. For me, going through, like, even when I was back, I knew deep down, like, this is where you got to get real with yourself. Like, deep down, I knew one of the things that was going to take me to another level in my business was effectively being able to cold call. Not necessarily like get myself to cold call, but just go through the practice, go through this. And so I had to put myself in an environment where I cold called in front of that mentor for probably 4 or 5 hours one day, even though, like, I don't know if you've ever cold called before, but I'm
Yep.
not a fan of having people listen to me or having people
Mm-mm.
like, you're always worried
I feel like
about,
you're
like,
on stage.
right. Yeah. And I'm even a presenter now. Like, we hosted a big event and I was on stage in front of like 90 people, but still, you tell me to cold call in front of somebody that I value their opinion. It's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, like,
Yeah. Feels weird.
and so, yeah, it feels weird, but deep down, like, that's going to get me somewhere different than I currently am, because that is now, it's limiting me. It's controlling me. I'm letting that outside thing control me instead of being the one in control.
Mm.
So I sat down and he picked me apart for like 3 hours. And now, I mean, I don't know if I could do it again. I haven't cold called in probably a year and a half, 2 years, but it's like, hi, I'm looking for the owner of 321 Candy Lane. This call's out of the blue. I don't know if you've ever, if you ever thought about selling this property or receiving an offer on it. Like, it becomes a skill set that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. It's led into my ability to, like, talk to people. It's led into my ability to have conversations differently. It's so it's opened a door that was closed to me before I leaned into it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, personal development in, like, your business, your personal relationships, your intimate relationships, and then your kids, they're all a reflection of the places that you want to grow in life. And they show up different ways. And so, for me, that patience, like with that building, patience became a huge one, not reacting, but letting things kind of play out and responding. For me, a lot of it has become, like, as I'm growing a coaching company, as I'm growing other businesses, like, leading other people. Like, I led 35 people back when I was selling cell phones. I was leading other people, and I made a mistake that got me fired. And I felt like I let all those people down. So, like, for me, showing up was one of the things, like, in integrity and in confidence and in leadership capacities. Like, I thought I had it. Well, it was all mental. It wasn't really showing up in that way. So, like, I've had to let go of abandonment stuff. I've had to let go of commitment issues. Right now, the biggest one I'm experiencing, I've been really good in the past at the big picture. And I've been really good at being the guy who knows enough to talk about what is being talked about in a way that is informative and makes it seem like I know. But I am now working through being the guy that goes into the details, working to be the guy that can build out a process, being a guy that, like, leans into this stuff, knowing that I've been not avoiding it, but, like, it'll whisper in the back of your head, like, hey, this is probably a skill set you should start learning. Hey, this is going to get you big, this is going to get you to that next level. The
Mhm.
whispers are always there, right? And it's a matter
Right.
of, like, are we doing it, or am I avoiding it by watching Netflix, doom scrolling, like eating sweets? Has been the
Yeah.
one I love. Um,
Yeah.
and the other thing, personal development wise, and this is what we look at, if you're going to do something in your business that hasn't been done before, it requires you to be a different person. Like you said, it
Yep.
requires a transformation. In order to do that, you have to understand. I use the analogy of a hot air balloon in our business, right? So a lot of people look at the business as, again, they go into that tactic of, I'm just going to do more, I'm going to do more, I'm going to do more. With a hot air balloon, the quickest way to make a hot air balloon rise is not pulling on the cord. It's cutting off a sandbag on the side. But most people don't know that. They just see the cool pull the air and do the
Okay.
fire, right?
Yeah.
Right. In personal development, it's all about letting go of the stuff that's limiting you so you have more energy to do the stuff that moves you further ahead. And
Yeah.
so when you pull that cord next time, it's more aligned. It's going to get you more results. It's going to be higher. It's going to have more effect. So it's got to be a balance, right? So what the business does is, if you're really serious about the business and you have a vision for where the business is going to go and you don't know how to get there, your mindset has to be, I'll figure it out. And then that adversity piece that I reference is going to come into play to build the muscle to get you that thing as fast as you want to engage that adversity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's how I look at it, as like, so what's the right? There's one for me, being more present with like your family. And Justin, I know you're big on traveling and big with your wife and your kids
Yep.
and stuff. And so like you can look back of like, okay, if I'm leading people in my business, why wouldn't I look at that as an opportunity to like build the skill set of just leadership in general of people? And so if I'm building that with my, if you're building it for, how I look at it and how I recommend it, if you're looking to build a skill set of leadership, but you're doing it to get a result in your business, not to be a better version or a bigger version or whatever version of yourself, then it's not gonna correlate across the board. For us, we want people to personal develop through their business so that it permeates every aspect in their life. Patience
Right.
learning through my 11 unit, I get to take that to my family. I get to take that into my coaching business. Coaching, working through building a team in a company, you learn how to, like, what skill set you learn in that, you get to take across the board if you so choose to. I don't think everybody
Right.
looks at it that way, but
Well,
really
and
for me, that's
it's,
how it comes
for
up.
me too, it's like I've noticed that whatever whatever issue you're having in your business, whether if it's not enough sales, not enough, maybe it's revenue, maybe it's team based, whatever it is, like it usually comes back to some sort of personal hang up, some sort of baggage that you're not working through, you're not letting go of, and that's holding you back on stuff, which then ultimately permeates through every aspect of your life, regardless of where you're at. So I've seen that
Yeah.
exact same thing play out.
Yeah, and it's levels too, because you're gonna work to go through stuff, and sometimes like you'll have an epiphany and things will change. You'll get the spark. The spark is great, but the spark doesn't really change anything. Same thing I talk about in the presentation. I'll say it right now in this video. You may get a spark from any of these podcasts. It's not going to change your life. The thing that changes your life is taking that spark and then putting it into practice every day in the situations. Because the life, when you start realizing and you start
Yep.
wanting to be somebody different than you're currently showing up as, the world will provide you that opportunity again and again until you show up the new way consistently. And then it won't be there anymore. That's how it happens. Most and for me, and what I called investment trauma when I was coaching with other people, I would sell people $10,000 weekends knowing they probably didn't have the skill set, the capacities. They didn't have what they were going to need to effectively take that $10,000 investment and go out and execute in a way that got them that money back. What it did, they were coming from that, I'm looking for a magic bullet. And when you're looking for a magic bullet, it's never going to happen, because you come from that energy of I'm not enough or it's not me, versus the people I saw that were successful were the people that came in and said, hey, I know I can do this stuff. I just need to find one thing that I can put into my business to make me more money and execute differently. That's a different energy. That comes from a capacity of I can versus a I can't, and I'm trying to find that thing that can. So when you come from that arena of personal development and like I'm the source, things work a whole lot differently. If all that makes sense.
Yes,
And did
it
that
does.
did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great way to kind of look at it. And it's, because like I said, it's something that I've seen time and time again in all of the businesses that we do, and growing and personal development stuff. It's like, it is
Yeah.
literally a forceful, even if you don't want it to be, it's a forceful personal development tool. Especially as problems arise, like you said, patience with the 11 unit.
Yeah.
You had to learn learn to get a little bit more patient with stuff. And it's like, there's been times in our business where we've had stuff happen or stuff got challenging, and it's like it forces you to become a better leader, to become a better business owner, a better, even at home. Like the thing that I think, and you'll know this from Mike, but like actually learning to enjoy the journey while you're going through this stuff,
Oh, yeah.
and learning that like you get that option, or you get to have that stuff happen to you and learn through it. And even though like if you look at the circumstance at a surface level, yeah, it can suck, right? Whatever it is, like if it's you have a down month in sales, you lose clients, you lose a deal, whatever it is. But ultimately those valleys long term create the high peaks because you're learning and growing through that time. And it's kind of like, for me, that was a big mindset shift for me over the last like probably year and a half maybe, but like the last 6-7 months, like it really tested me with some stuff that was like, okay, I need to learn to actually enjoy the process we're going through and the challenges and growing pains and things like that. And it's, I think for me, it's been a big important distinction to like not be miserable while you're forcefully growing, right? Just because it appears to suck, right? That you're actually getting that opportunity to grow and go to new heights at that point.
Yeah. Forcefully growing. I love that. I love that phrase. Yeah. And we act like it's from the outside, and that's what it feels like. And so we can easily say like, oh, I'm at the mercy of it. And that's when you make that perspective shift. You get to start enjoying it because you're like, oh, I asked for this on some level. I'm sure there's something.
I was just going to say, we've all heard the quote. It's like, you can put out there like, or say what you want. And it's like, are you sure? Because you're about to get tested to see if that's really what you want.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that I'll tie that right back into the real estate business, because being a wholesaler, being somebody that buys properties, I love when I talk to new people or just talk to people. You can tell the people that have dialed in their business a little bit, who dialed it in a lot, or who are newer, and you're like, hey, what type of properties do you buy? I'll buy anything. Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my example is like, and the areas, North City, St. Louis. You've got a property that's worth, at the high end, it's for family, it's huge, it's worth 50-70 grand maybe on the high end. It rents for probably 1,600, but it's going to take 100 grand to repair, and they're asking seven. Like, is that the type of stuff you're looking for? No way the numbers work, which is why most of North City has vacant properties right now.
Yep.
And they're like, well, no, I wouldn't look at that. And it's like, then
like you
you're
have to
not
pay me to buy that property at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's what it's going to take.
I'm not even driving up there.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, what you ask for is what you're going to get. And so when most people are looking just for a deal, you're going to get a lot of stuff that isn't a deal because you're not specific enough. That's why we said, go back and look at your stuff. Like, you might have a pattern that you don't even know yet because you've had all of this stuff presented to you, and the stuff that actually was aligned with you is what ended up happening. Now just get focused on that and ask for that, and you will start getting more quality time with that process and that product, or that type of seller, right? Yeah, you get what you ask for. And so if you're not specific enough, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. So if you're not specific enough, if you don't have clarity on it, you're going to get stuff that doesn't align with it because you're just asking for anything. You're too generic in what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and for me, like, I'm a science nerd. Like I'm very, you probably know this, Josh and Vinny, you might have recognized it at this point, but I'm a very left brain, analytical, science-based type thinker person, which that's a weird sentence to say now that I say it, but we're like, the right side, artsy, ethereal side of my brain is a little slower. So like, you can also look at it too from a science and biological based as well, because your body is built to see what you focus on, right? Like you can, I think we just sent it. I think I sent an email out it, or it's coming out today, one of the two. But like the reticular activating system in your brain is designed to recognize patterns and things that you consistently see. So when you buy a Chevy Silverado, well, now you see Chevy Silverados everywhere, because that's what's familiar. It's what you're focused on. It's what you like. And it's similar in business, similar in life. Like if you know truly what you're focused on, and like you said, not just any property or any deal, like, yeah, you're going to get stuff that comes across to you, but like, no, I'm focused on single families that are 100 to 150,000. They need X amount. Like that stuff is a lot easier to find when you actually narrow down what you're looking for and understand and have that clarity to know that, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for versus whatever comes to me. Maybe I'll figure out a way to do it. Like it's a big differentiator.
Yeah. And I would say too, through the podcast, you know, this is only our fifth one, but I think every guest we've had, a horror story came out of them doing something outside of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Like seriously. And I hear it all the time on phone calls that we're on all the time, right? Like that's when the mistakes are going to be made. That's when the things that you're not familiar with, it's going to confuse you. It's going to throw you for a loop. And then that's where the reactions, Josh, that you talk about come in, you know, and yeah, like it's every story we've heard so far has been outside of what you're looking for.
Outside of that scope. Yeah.
Yep. And I'll take you guys a layer deeper with that, looking at it through the lens of adversity and what you asked for. If you look at that, and I would go back, everybody does have those horror stories, by the way, the shiny object syndrome and corporate whiplash type stuff. It is there. If you look at it, I will bet there was a payoff, even though it was a horror story, there is a payoff that helped them with their next level in their business, right? And part of that might be, hey, we really do need to just stay in our lane. Like, don't veer. Like that lesson needed to be crystal clear for this next part of our path. Like that's normally what ends up happening, but we label it as like a horror story because we did X, as opposed to, you know what? We didn't get the result we anticipated. However, the lessons that we learned allowed us to do X, Y, and Z next in our business. Yeah. That's when you start cultivating power. Because really, the thing that attracted me to my partner, Grant, looking back on it, was when we connected, he was going through a time in his life where he had these agents leave. He had 5 deaths in his family in the span of like 3 months around Christmas. The guy handled it like nobody I've ever seen. And he's been, and so that was what we are looking for in life. We're looking to emulate the people, and we're attracted to the people that we're looking to emulate something they have or some way they're showing up in their world. Like for me, being emotionally stable and like resilient and being able to handle adversity was something I didn't know I needed at the time, but looking back, that's what attracted me to it. And so, yeah, we are on these paths, and we're going to continue to have these adversities. We're going to continue to make decisions. And even I, knowing this, and like the basis of some of like our coaching is around this transformation, like this adversity stuff, like engaging in the process, and like our businesses as a personal development tool. And we still forget it sometimes. Like we will get caught in the trap of anger, like frustration, working on a faucet, and I make a judgment like, oh, I don't need to turn off the water to half the building. I can just try and do it while, it's semi dripping. And then I'm literally covered in water from like head to toe, laying on the ground, trying to fix this faucet. And I have to turn off the water to the building anyway. And I'm pissed because I bet on myself and I failed. Like it happens. Like, we have those moments, and then it's like, okay, the real question is, how soon can I get back to that momentum energy and that phase where I feel and I love like myself, I love life, I love my business, I love all these things because I show up more energetically and more impactfully and get more results. So,
dude, I did that same thing in my own house when we first moved in. Like it was, I'm pretty handy with most things. Plumbing is not my thing. Like I can do,
if anything deals with water, I don't.
Like dude, I could put floors in, I can do backsplashes. I remodeled our entire bathroom myself, but plumbing is a thing I should never touch. And it was probably like, I don't know, 6 months into us living there, had the entire shower taken out. It was one of those like all in one that you have to like dig out the drywall to pull out because it's got that little lip behind the drywall. So we pulled that out
Yep.
and had the new shower pan in, and it was just all the green board at this point on the walls. And we ended up, I was trying to put on, and I had that same thought. I was like, maybe I should just turn the water off to the house. And I was like, nah, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm just replacing part of the shower nozzle on there, right? Well, not thinking that the cartridge that was in there is from like 1984. And like I just bumped it wrong and it like exploded inside the wall and shot like a stream of water like the size of a baseball, just at like full pressure out into out into our bathroom, flooded our entire bathroom into the basement. Like it was a nightmare. So I'm someone who should not touch plumbing either, because that's not
Dude,
my
plumbing and electrical, man, can of worms.
See, electrical I can do. I can do electrical. I did that through
Up to
high
a point,
school,
I
after
can do
high school.
electrical.
That's true.
Up to
If
a
I'm
point, yeah.
if I'm messing with a panel, I don't want to die, so I don't
Yeah.
touch that.
Yeah. Like outlets, switches,
Yeah.
you know, switching out ceiling fans and light fixtures. It's super easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the regular stuff.
If
when
it
you
gets to
start
the
getting,
panel,
for me, when
I
you start
don't touch it anymore, because that's where I
Yeah.
don't want to explode or do anything
Yeah.
to kill myself. So yeah,
three-way switches and like old electrical, I've pulled off like heaters and replaced them, and it's like, oh, like wall heaters, and it's like, okay, the heater's working now, but this outlet isn't, and now this light isn't, and yeah, I am learning also in this personal development phase. You learn real quick where your boundaries are and what you're willing to do. There's some things that can stretch you a little bit, and then there's things that you just got to be like, I'm not good at it. It's going to cost me too much money if I do this, and if I try it and screw it up, it's going to cost me more money. And how much time is it going to take? It's like you got to know where that line is so you can, hire somebody else out that's better at it. So
yes,
for
and
sure.
it'll probably be quicker because you have a professional doing it.
Right. Yeah. And if they screw it up, then it's on them.
Yeah, their insurance covers it at that point. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If they're bonded and insured.
Yeah. No joke. All right, let me. Sorry, I was
So what
pulling up,
else, man?
Yeah, what else we got here? I was pulling up your notes that you had sent over here. Let's talk about this. So you're doing the coaching. You're doing the you do some real estate stuff on the side. What are, or I wouldn't say on the side, within that as well, but what is your go-to systems that you have to have, or your tools? I know you put a couple things in here, but what are, like, for me, I know like now one of my new tools I have to use like friggin' every day is AI in some sort, because it just saves me so much time with stuff. But I also use HubSpot. We use Alaware is our phone system that we use for a lot of stuff. So what are kind of like your systems and tools that you have to be able to have access to really help make your life easier in business?
Okay. So for me, I work with tech. I obviously like your standard ones, Outlook, your phone, obviously. We're investigating. We had been operating because we're relatively, newer. Podio is one. It's very customizable. We like that as a CRM initially. I'm looking at a couple different CRMs as well, to incorporate not just the real estate, but also coaching possibly, to have, because we also have a proprietary one through my through Grant's company, but it's geared towards traditional. And so like retrofitting technologies work sometimes, but not always. So looking to kind of combine those together. We're looking at like Go Higher Level. I know some of my friends have it, recommend it highly. So we're looking at that as a CRM. So yeah, like Podio, Outlook, Deal Machine when I was driving for dollars was huge. Afterwards when they came out, trying to think if there's other ones like Chat GPT, like you said, AI. I'm starting to really, really embrace and enjoy, because I'm good with linguistics and talking in that. Creating marketing copy from that is an opportunity for me. So like when I can't figure out a word or like how to make a marketing copy sound a little more eloquent, it's pretty cool to be like, hey, writing from the perspective of X, give me this. And then, so it's like having almost that mentor that can write it, doing some other stuff with AI. So there's those things, but yeah, technology wise, for me, it's not, I work more through networking and like the word of mouth than anything else. Cause feel like I'm an old soul, but I know the value in the funnels. And as we continue to grow, those will be incorporated. I know they're not like a never going to happen. I know they're going to happen, just a matter of where we're going to start inputting them into our business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, networking is a huge thing too with that I don't think it's talked about enough with people, because I used to be really bad at it, which sounds kind of stupid because it's literally just talking to people. But like, there's a lot more that goes into that. So, you know, I know you pretty well at this point, but what's kind of when you're networking with people for real estate stuff, for coaching and doing all that and putting it all together, how do you manage that typically? Like, what does that look like for you?
Are you talking about the process of going out and doing it, or
Yeah.
managing it on the back end? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Like, you know, like for, you know, if you go to an event, right? Like Faster House, for example, right? Because we both go there. What,
Yeah.
you know, what's kind of your, because what I used to do is I used to go to these events and I just kind of blend into the background, shake a few hands, talk to a couple people, maybe follow up if I remembered, forget my business cards every freaking time I go somewhere. I always forget them. Not so much anymore, but like I used to have a big problem with like actually intentionally networking with people. So when you go to an event or a meetup or whatever, like what is your kind of thought process going in? How do you handle that?
That is a great question, and ties into that personal development aspect we were talking about. So one of the things for me, I knew, and this is what attracted me to Grant as well, is his business was built mostly on word of mouth, where before I came from a company that was all about prospecting and like 30 different ways to market, and we really weren't doing all 35. We were doing a handful, if that. And so Grant's approach was all about, and for me in my growth, and I wasn't aware at the time, around building relationships. Because I was very transactional and I was very like disconnected to just like the humanity of things. And so that was great. So my approach, because I was kind of the same thing, like I was so afraid to even like go out and talk to people. Like, nobody wants my product. Nobody, like, they're not going to want to coach with me, or they're not going to want to sell me have me like help them sell a house because I'm not good enough and all this. And, you know, it's just that timidness of, you know, so I would stay in the background. And we all have that to some level. What changed for me as I was looking at this personal development was, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be when I show up in the networking world? And so I put a avatar in my mind of who's the guy that was always connected and could pretty much help people. Because that's one of the things too we talk about in our company, of like reciprocation, is providing value, knowing you're going to get the value in return. And so for me, that became okay, so I'm just looking to connect people to resources through my network. If that's really my goal, who do I need to be? And so the thought came up, have you guys seen the Shawshank Redemption?
It's been a
movie?
long time, but yes.
Yeah. You remember Morgan Freeman's character, Red, in that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Red was the guy in prison. If you needed something, Red was the guy. And if he didn't have it for you, he knew the guy that could get it for you, right? So he'd be able to get you whatever in prison. My goal was to be Red in the networking arena. So every time I would go out, that is what I would tell people. And eventually, and this is where that personal development and transformation happens, every time it felt like I was going out, that was the energy I would have. I started embracing it to where after a year and a half, people started calling me a natural connector, right? I was not a natural connector. I was a terrible connector. I had no idea what connection really looked like. And so you get to this point where you tell yourself that lie often enough. And it wasn't really a lie at the time. It was my goal and who I wanted to be and what I was striving for. I put it out into practice. And so now I'm even at the point where I'm like, man, I'm a natural connector and I'm doing this. We even forget how much we weren't that person back in the day. So the connection wise and looking at reciprocation, one of the things, so that would be the first one, is always be able like to look out and see, because you're going to get back what you put out tenfold, right? So if I'm looking for value back and I'm looking for things back, if I know I'm going out and providing value, knowing it's going to come back, then it's not a problem. And I start making connections. One of the great things that first mentor said, back in the day that helped me with the wholesaling. One of the things he said is, when I help you, I take up permanent real estate in your mind. And I was like, well, damn, that makes
That's
a lot
good.
of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I help you and I provide you something, I plant a seed in your mind for the rest of your life. I've got something growing in the back of your head that I provided you value at one time. So when I elevate how I look at things, in this kind of little woo-woo, Justin, you might get this.
It's all good.
If I'm planting these seeds over time, as I elevate my energy and how I show up in life, and I go and increase, like, hey, I may have an 11 unit now, but as I'm looking for a 30 unit, and I've helped somebody that has a connection with somebody that has a connection with somebody that has a 30 unit, that new way of being and showing up will activate those connections in other people. And so when I get that message out and it's concise and I show what I want, that person's going to be triggered because, oh, I helped them back in the day. I'm going to be on the lookout, or, hey, I'm going to be able to help them at some point, right? So you provide value, you get it back.
Yeah.
To speak secondly on the thing, Justin, you were talking about sitting in the back of the room, and like having that timid energy. I was there too. One of the things my partner Grant helped me with, he went to a networking event with me one time, and we were standing in the back of the room, and he goes, you've got a buyers club event as well. He's like, you've got 200 people here in this room. How many of these people are your ideal clients or would be a fit for our coaching company? And I'm like, honestly, man, I don't know. I can see it. He's like, that's where you're getting stuck. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm looking at this room and I'm thinking, there are so many opportunities here to find our next client, either them, the person they know. We just got to ask the question right, and we got to have that energy of finding them. And that really shifted things for me too. And he goes, the intention you had coming into this event probably wasn't lined up with what your outcome actually wanted to be. And so now I go into these events, and it's not a matter of like, I'm going to get a whole bunch of clients. No, for me, the intention is I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a relationship or two. Even with a room full of 200 people, I'm going to make a relationship or two that is going to have a lasting positive impact on my business and their business. And if I go in with that, knowing I'm going to provide value, knowing I'm going to get it in return, and just looking for two really solid relationships, then I show up in a different way versus, man, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if this, I don't know. And so, and again, it's just that practice. And so now every time I go to a networking event or a presentation, like, that's the type of energy I'm bringing to it. And it's going to evolve over time too. But that's really the things that have helped me. Now, talk technology wise, this is one I forgot. Digital business card. Speaking of which, I need to order a new one because our company changed. It's not Invest anymore. It's Clarity Coaching. But digital business cards, you don't have to have a ton of cards. You just have to have somebody with a smartphone. You scan it or you beep it, and then it sends our information back and forth to each other. So we don't have to do the business card thing and, drop them and all of that jazz. So that's a technology I definitely recommend.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we recommend it so much, we actually give it as welcome gifts to our members.
Oh, cool. That's right. Yep. Is there a company in particular you use for that?
We use OVU.
Okay. Got it.
OV, what is it? It's on the back here. OVOU. Yep.
Pretty sure.
And we picked them. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones that work well. We picked them because it's a one-time fee. It's a little costlier than most. They have a little more accessibility. They provide 3 profiles. So if you have multiple businesses, you can do 3 different ones. But it's got a lot of functionality, but it's like, I think 60 or 70 or $80 for a card. But it's only a one-time fee. No.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a box of business cards sitting in here that I paid probably $100 for that are mostly going to get lost.
Yeah. And we didn't want one with a subscription. We were looking for certain functionality, so it worked. We like that one. And it's been good for us. So, but yeah, definitely recommend that if you're out there networking. I will say, senior communities, they do not work well with digital business cards. The senior communities and everybody in the senior communities, they are old school with paper. I worked in the senior communities, like with the investing circles for a little bit. And yeah, it's crazy. They are all about the paper. So make sure you got them if you go that route. But
yep. Good point.
So that's
good point. I guess it depends on your audience, right?
Definitely does. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was what I would say with the networking. And definitely one of the biggest things, as you're elevating your business and as you're growing your business, and it's a cliche. It's funny, cliches are out there and you're always like, oh, that cliche, that's stupid, until you really get further into life and you're like, oh, I see the value of that cliche. One of the one is
Yeah.
there's competition at the bottom, there's collaboration at the top. The
Yep.
more successful you get, the more you are working in, especially with people that work in the personal development space, to enjoy and have a fulfilling life while they're building their businesses. You're gonna find that, I'll just speak for myself, Justin, and Vince, you probably will back this. We are more interested in creating and helping people achieve what they're looking for in life than getting mine without getting yours.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. That's funny. Like Vince said something earlier about, like, we've heard the same thing from almost every guest that we've had on here, and that this is a recurring theme as well too.
Yeah.
It's like at the bottom,
It
it's
is.
competition, top, it's collaboration, and it's the
Scarcity versus abundance.
yeah, totally. And like the wealthiest people I've met and known have given me the most value for little in exchange, right? Even if I'm paying to be in their mastermind or paying to go to a one-time event, whatever it is. Like there's one guy in particular I can trace back to put us where we're at today. His name's Scott Oldford out of I don't know if he's still in California, but we paid $7,500 a month for a year to be in this guy's mastermind. It's like 90 grand on the year.
Yeah.
But that took us in one business from 20,000 a month to over 100,000 a month. Took another business from 30 grand a month to almost $500,000 a month, like over years, like just using those concepts. So like the amount of value that we got, even by paying in there, is
right,
years beyond what we would have ever expected. And it's cool to see that stuff.
Yeah. And that's it, man. We're all just looking to grow and increase and create abundance. And if I can do it with other people, like seeing other people win at the same time, especially if we had a hand in it, like the mentoring aspect and like helping and coaching other people, it's a fulfilling, I don't even know how to describe it or explain it. It's very fulfilling. And as a mentor to other people and having been mentored, seeing people that really want to go out and execute and just know that like you are a piece that helps either catalyze them or like connect the dot that closes a gap for them. Like, again, real estate in other people's minds. I know those people are going to come back and we're going to do deals. I did a 50 grand deal with one of the guys I knew from a decade ago. He was a rehabber and he never done a wholesale before. And I helped him run numbers on it. And I was like, dude, you can make more money wholesaling this in this market than lifting the hammer and rehabbing it. And he's like, let's see. We made 50 grand. It was the biggest wholesale I've ever done and he's ever had a part in. So nice. It comes around, those lifelong relationships.
Yeah, no, they really do. What you got, Vince?
I was going to say, you can cut this out, but I don't know how this happened. Luna, my dog, is outside the house looking in a window and she's crying to get in. So I don't even know what's going on up there.
Is that a good point to like start wrapping this up?
like she's bawling, crying outside, trying to get in. So
man,
she had to escape out the backyard or something. So
I don't know. We might leave it in. That's entertaining.
That is pretty entertaining. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, if you need to go let her in, man, that's fine.
Okay.
I've got kind of last thing for you, Josh, while you're on here. Obviously it's NextDeal Podcast is what we call it, and this is something we're trying to get better at, is like just finishing out the meeting, which has been great. This has been a great call. Flew by really quick, actually. But like for you, if you had to give one piece of advice to people that are listening to help them get to their next deal, what is that piece of advice based off of your experience, where you're at in your business, what you see in the marketplace, whatever it might be? What is that piece of advice for you to help someone get to that next deal that they're trying to get?
Yep. So we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll wrap it up into a package. Mentorship, guides, coaches, anybody that is doing something at a level that you want to be doing something at, in a way that you are wanting to do it, because that's a big piece that a lot of people don't see. because there are tons of people that do things, but like you said, they can be millionaires and miserable. Figure out if you want to show up that way. The thing that is important in that is to find out how you can provide value for them. Some mentors, they just want you to go out and do a deal. They want you to take what they're giving you and go out and execute. That is a value. That can be a value to them. If it is monetary, if you have money, hire a coach. You're going to have to, that reciprocation piece, provide value for them in some way. If you're new, go out and find somebody that's doing something and go work for them. Find the value, be honest up front. Like, hey, I want to learn this. Can I work for you? That's one of the things I did. Figure out a way to do that. If it's lead generation, find the people that are great at lead generation in the way you want to do it, however that is, but figure out a way to trade value, and that will elevate you to get you to the next step. Don't do it like trying to, as we talked about, you got to provide value to get that value in return tenfold. Find out how to do it. That will shorten your time spans. That's really what we're looking to do. That next deal is on the horizon. It's already there. It's happening. Just a matter of how quickly can you find it, and are you going to be able to do it long enough to get there? So shortening that time cycle is huge. People with different mindsets, people with different skill sets, people that have done it before. One of the greatest things that will move the business forward, without a doubt.
Love it.
Yeah. And take a look at what you think the biggest problem in your business is. It's probably not actually what the biggest problem in your business is, but it's how it's presenting itself. Figure out what the root causes of those problems are. I have a lot of people that are saying like, hey, I've got a lead generation problem, and you go and you look and it's like, no, you don't have a lead generation problem. You've got a lead management problem. Oh, I've got a hiring problem. We go and look and it's like, oh, you don't really have a hiring problem. You've got an interview process problem. Yeah. It's not that you so dig into the roots of what you're actually experiencing to find out what's really causing it. That will help get you to the next deal as well faster. So it's one of the things.
Don't look at it at surface level.
Yeah, no, you got to dig into the details and you got to build out, you got to find what the root is that gets you into the actual process, which gives you more connection. It gives you more experience. It gives you more understanding. It gives you a better ability to work through it. So
awesome.
That makes sense.
Love it, man. Last thing, where can people find you if they want to find out more about what you're doing with coaching, real estate stuff, follow along with you online? What's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Best place is my email, or you can find me on Facebook. Facebook, it's just josh.weisler. You can search for me. You'll see my beautiful headshot from Corey Boyles on there.
There you go.
But yeah, and then my email is josh@ghreainvest.com. Send me an email, and we can go from there. So
perfect. Love it, man.
Like I said, we're building out our funnels.
Yep. I appreciate you hopping on, man. This was a lot of fun. A lot of really good in-depth content that has probably gone deeper than most of our podcasts we've done so far. So it's a really good one. So,
well, if that doesn't help and I need to come back and do all surface level, let me know.
Right. Now, surface level's boring, man. Like, always try and get deeper into stuff when we're on these calls.
I get it, man. Yeah, I can do both. So
yeah.
I normally just let it flow, and if I let the experience happen, and if you guys will direct me which way you want me to go.
Yep, exactly. Well, awesome. Thanks everyone for following along, listening along. If you haven't subscribed or liked yet, share it, do all that fun stuff. Help us get this out there a little bit more. And again, Josh, thank you for your time today. And I know I'll see you soon, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. See you, man.
Bye.